I'm Tracy Sable tonight on EWTN News Nightly. Heartbreaking and catastrophic. An update on the wildfires in Hawaii as the death toll continues to climb. Targeting the faithful. Why a couple is accusing a New England state of rejecting foster parent applications from Catholics. Mixed bag. A closer look at the highs and lows of the economic numbers released today. And with this light, a new movie honors a religious sister who helped thousands of children escape poverty. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you for being with us on the Feast of Saint Clare of Assisi. Our top story tonight, breaking today, Attorney General Merrick Garland makes a surprise announcement. He appointed a special counsel in the Hunter Biden probe. The Associated Press calls it a stunning development which deepens the investigation of the president's son ahead of the 2024 election. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen.
Tracy, President Joe Biden had nothing on his public schedule today and was set to leave for Rehoboth Beach tonight. Meanwhile, the Attorney General has named David Weiss as a special counsel. Now, he's been probing the financial and the business dealings of the president's son, Hunter Biden. Take a listen.
The appointment of Mr. Weiss reinforces for the American people the department's commitment to both independence and accountability in particularly sensitive matters.
Today's development also comes during a pair of sweeping Justice Department probes into former President Donald Trump. His attorneys arriving at court in Washington, D.C. today, trying to protect his right to speak out about the election conspiracy case against him. The federal judge warning that there are limits on what the former president can say publicly. Meanwhile, in Chicago, Vice President Kamala Harris makes her pitch for gun control.
I believe in the Second Amendment, but I also believe we need to renew the assault weapons ban. We need red flag laws.
And in neighboring Iowa, Republican candidates on the campaign trail. Former Vice President Mike Pence telling voters,
"For me, for my family, faith is what's most important."
Meanwhile, several U.S. lawmakers, including Chip Roy, in a letter asking the U.S. State Department to raise concerns and speak out on behalf of a Finnish lawmaker who they say is being targeted by Finnish prosecutors for religious beliefs concerning marriage. The lawmakers also write, no American, no Finn, and no human should face legal harassment for simply living out their religious beliefs. We asked about that case earlier at the State Department. They later sent us a statement saying, as a general matter, we do not comment on congressional correspondences, but adding in part, the United States supports everyone's unencumbered freedom of religion, which is a human right that is fundamental to the history of the United States, integral to our national identity and governance as expressed in the First Amendment, and a core component of our foreign policy.
Also tonight, presidential candidate Mike Pence is ripping that multi-billion-dollar deal between the U.S. and Iran to free 5 Iranian Americans now under house arrest. Pence calls it a historical ransom payment that will allow Iran to fund terrorism. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
At least 55 people have died in the devastating wildfires in Hawaii. The governor calls the damage heartbreaking and catastrophic.
It is going to take many years to rebuild Lahaina. When you see the full extent of the destruction of Lahaina, it will shock you. It does appear like a bomb and fire went off, if I may. And all of those buildings virtually are going to have to be rebuilt.
Democrat Josh Green says the death toll is expected to rise. More than 1,000 structures were destroyed by the blazes, some of which are still burning. Pope Francis says that he is praying for those affected by the fires. In a telegram earlier today, the Holy Father said he stands, quote, in solidarity with all those suffering, especially those whose loved ones have died or are missing. One historic church was destroyed amid the tragedy. One sign of hope. There are reports in Lahaina that Our Lady of Victory Church and Rectory were not among the buildings destroyed, despite being surrounded by flames. One resident calls their survival, quote, a beacon of hope. A Catholic couple has filed a lawsuit against the state of Massachusetts. They allege the Commonwealth is rejecting their application to foster parents because of their Catholic faith. Mike and Kitty Burke say that they went through the entire vetting process with the Massachusetts Department of Children and Families and were turned away after expressing their viewpoints on marriage, sexuality, and gender. Here now to discuss the case is Lori Windham, senior counsel at Becket Law, who is representing the Burkes. Lori, great to have you with us today. Can you give us just a little bit of background on the Burke story and what ultimately led you to filing the lawsuit on their behalf?
Absolutely. The Burkes are a wonderful, loving couple. Mike plays the organ at Mass. Kitty is a cantor. Mike's an Iraq War veteran. They own a small business together. Kitty's actually worked with special needs children in the past. And after being unable to have children of their own, they opened their hearts and opened their home and foster, and they hoped someday to adopt a child through the Massachusetts foster care system. After, as you said, a very lengthy application process, they were turned down, and the state was very clear. The reason they were rejected is because of their Catholic religious beliefs on issues like marriage and sexuality and gender.
Yeah, and I know several outlets are reporting that the foster care system in the state is in crisis there in Massachusetts. Can you talk to us about that, and how bad is it?
You know, this comes at a really sad moment for Massachusetts. There was an expose about the fact that Massachusetts actually had children who were left in hospitals. These were healthy children, and they were being housed in hospitals because Massachusetts didn't have a place to put them. There are hundreds of children right now who are in need of a loving home. And so the idea that they would turn away a couple like Mike and Kitty is just heartbreaking. And it also raises the question, if they're willing to turn away this one faithful Catholic couple, how many others out there are going to be turned away when we need homes for these kids?
Yeah, and you mentioned the state of Massachusetts, citing their views on marriage and sexuality and gender stemming from their religious faith, their Catholic faith. But I'm curious, if it was another faith, say they were Jewish or Muslim or Mormon who shared similar values, do you think they would have been turned away?
I think based on what Massachusetts has said, there's a very real possibility they could be turning away a number of families from different faith groups, which just means fewer loving homes for children who are in need. And it's really concerning that because this Catholic couple was honest about their faith and honest about what they believed, they were just excluded from welcoming any child in the foster system into their home.
Yeah, it is heartbreaking. There's been, as you know, a ton of publicity surrounding this lawsuit. Are you surprised at the reaction and also the public's interest in this story?
I'm really heartened to see how much attention has been on this story. It shows that it really has struck a nerve. People are looking at this story and saying, wait a minute, with all these kids out there, why would you do this? And also, I think a lot of people who are perhaps hoping to foster or adopt themselves, or people who are parents, are thinking about this and going, wow, how could the state say that you were not fit, that you were not able to have children placed in your home because of your religious beliefs? I think this is the kind of thing that really concerns many, many people. And it's the kind of thing at Becket that we want to be able to fight against and to make sure that religious freedom is going to be protected.
Lori, what comes next in this case?
Well, we are waiting to see what Massachusetts is going to say. They have not commented so far, despite all the media stories. This case was just filed in federal court in Massachusetts this week. We're asking the courts to undo the wrong that has been done and make sure that the Burkes and other families like them are not going to be excluded. And so Massachusetts, later this month or early next month, is going to have to go to the court and give an answer for what it has done.
Lori, thank you so much for talking with us. We're going to continue to follow this case. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. God bless.
Thank you. God bless.
Well, the latest numbers are out and show a mixed bag for the U.S. economy. While inflation in July cooled somewhat, it still remains high. Food and gas prices are up and housing costs continue to climb. Meantime, Democrats like Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren say the economy has turned the corner and is humming along thanks to President Biden's policies.
There are a lot of economic issues that are ones that touch people right where they live. And they recognize, they got to be able to hold it together until the end of the month. President Biden makes it clear he's out there fighting for those people every single day. He's out there fighting to keep those costs low. The Republicans are fighting the president.
But Republicans, like Senate Minority Whip John Thune, blame Democrats for the economic uncertainty. The South Dakota senator tells EWTN News Nightly the people are falling behind.
That's all a result of, bad policies and compounded on more bad policies. So what we need to do is, keep spending under control, make sure that we're supporting pro-growth policies that will increase investment in the economy and create better paying jobs for people. But fundamentally, this ends up just the massive amount of spending Democrats have done over the past couple of years.
Congress faces a difficult September. Top priority is passing appropriations bills for a dozen government agencies to avoid a possible government shutdown come October 1st. Well, a deadly outbreak has led to the deaths of more than 360 people in Bangladesh so far this year. Hospitals are overwhelmed from the record-breaking spread of dengue fever. Since January, tens of thousands of people have been infected by the mosquito-borne illness. Cyprus and Bolivia are also experiencing dengue outbreaks. Well, Russia launches its first mission to the moon in nearly 50 years. The Luna 25 team aims to land in a never-before-used site. The goal is to build a lunar base to further study the moon and distant planets. The craft is expected to arrive on August 23rd and will land in the moon's south pole. Scientists believe the craters in the south pole may contain water. We have a lot more still to come here on EWTN News Nightly, including South Korea as host. The Global Scouts Jamboree comes to a close. Plus, a church leader and well-known Catholic voice explains his hopes for the next World Youth Day. The World Scout Jamboree in South Korea held its closing ceremony.
Han Dok-soo will give a closing address. Please give.
The country's prime minister addressed the crowd, who later took in a K-pop concert. The global gathering was beset by a typhoon and high temperatures, prompting thousands of British and American scouts to leave early. Officials say they did their best to provide a variety of safe activities amid the difficulties. Well, South Korea is set to host the next World Youth Day in 2027. One church leader is reflecting on the event's past and its future. Bishop Robert Barron says the event has changed dramatically from even the mid-1990s under St. John Paul II. The numbers at the recently completed World Youth Day in Lisbon were promising. The United States sent more than 28,000 people, almost all of whom were between the ages of 18 and 25. Bishop Barron from the Diocese of Winona-Rochester reflected on this and more with EWTN Vatican correspondent Colm Flynn.
Today, 2023, when we hear so much about religion declining around the world and so many different distractions for young people, why do you think an event like World Youth Day is still relevant, and not only relevant, but important?
Well, one thing, is the faith in some ways is declining in the West. Other parts of the world, it's not. And one thing about these World Youth Days, you see Catholics from all over the world, and it breaks us out of our sometimes Western, myopic view of things. So I love that. You see the vibrancy of the faith in Africa and Asia, etc. But secondly, everyone's hungry for God. Whether they acknowledge it or not, whether they feel it directly or not, everybody's hungry for God. So when there's an opportunity to come together, to seek God, to praise God, young people respond. They don't want an uncertain trumpet. They don't want a vacillating message. They want something clear. And when they get it, they respond to it.
It's interesting when you say that. They want something solid, something with a solid foundation, something clear.
We dumbed down the faith for way too long. My generation got to dumb down Catholicism, and it's been a pastoral disaster. And that's not just my private opinion. You can see that in every survey. When you ask people why are they disaffiliating, in the Western world anyway, they'll often say, I never got my questions answered, religion seemed stupid, it's out of line with science, etc., etc. We dumb down the faith in an attempt to make it relevant, and we undermined ourselves. It's a vibrant, smart, beautiful Catholicism that people find compelling.
And do you think there was maybe a complacency? I know in my home country of Ireland, when we did a report recently looking at the decline of the faith, and a country that was once called the lands of saints and scholars,
Ireland,
they had the people coming, 90% attendance. There was no great need to evangelize because the people were there, the pews were filled.
I mean, evangelization is the task of the church in every time, in every age. Whether you got 90% coming or you got 20% coming, our job is to evangelize. Pope Benedict said the church does three things. It worships God, it serves the poor, and it evangelizes. So that's the task. In season and out, whether we're successful culturally or hated culturally, we proclaim Jesus Christ as Lord.
When I've been speaking to young people here, all the worries and the anxieties, you think of what has happened in the world since the last World Youth Day in Panama, with the war, with the pandemic, with everything. What do you think young people should leave here with a sense of that they didn't have when they came here? How should they have changed?
Well, you know, I think it is tougher being a young person now, and the pandemic had a lot to do with it, but also the rise of the social media in its negative aspect. I love the social media, you know, I use it, but it's got a very negative aspect. And these young people, they know this. The numbers of anxiety and depression, suicidal tendencies are all spiking among young people. And a lot of it's related to the social media. I want them to come away with a sense of, you know, that world, you can use it, it's a tool, but that's not the real world. The real world is the world of the worship of God, the service of the poor, communion with one another, and that's what this day is all about, you know? It's tougher being a young person now than it was when John Paul started these things a long time ago. It's tougher now, which means we need Christ more than ever. And I want them to come away with a sense of Jesus who loves them, who walks with them, and wants to be the Lord of their life in a liberating way. If that message comes through, we got something good for them.
It was great talking to you. Thank you so much.
Up next on EWTN News Nightly, a nice ring to it. 2 historic church bells are taken down in Spain. We'll explain. Plus, Sharing the Light, a new movie about the life of a religious sister who changed the lives of tens of thousands of children in Honduras. Of a historic Catholic church in Spain are being taken down for repairs. The San Eloy and Maria de la Ascensión bells were removed earlier this week from the Church of Santa Catalina in Valencia. The building dates back to the Middle Ages and was once a mosque. The bell tower is one of the most recognizable landmarks in the port city. Finally tonight, as we mentioned earlier, today is the feast of Saint Clare of Assisi, a special day for the Franciscan order, and a new movie is highlighting the work of a Franciscan nun in Honduras.
Hacia los más necesitados. Mientras hay un niño en la calle sufriendo, Maria Rosa no puede estar alegre.
With This Light in select theaters starting today tells the story of Sister Maria Rosa Leggol, who helped more than 87,000 children in Honduras escape poverty and violence. She did so through a network of social and educational projects. Sister Maria died back in 2020 at the age of 93, but her spirit lives on. And we go now to Jessica Sarowitz, executive producer of With This Light. Jessica, thanks so much for joining us. Great to see you again. Tell us a little bit more about Sister Maria and what your connection is to her and what inspired you to tell her story.
Yes, hello everyone, and thank you for having me today. The thing that inspired me to tell Sister Maria Rosa Leggol's story is, you know, she had so much spiritual energy, impact, and there were so many people, because I had a relationship with her for over 7 years, and she had so many people that would come up and they would feel compelled to give testimony to their story in terms of, sister did this, sister did that. Do you know about the Great Plane, when she stopped the plane from taking off? Do you know when she rescued a child? Do you know that she's a great, you know, founder of rural health clinics in the country? And also she has an honorary degree from Marquette University in the US, another university, St. Xavier in Canada. So, I mean, there were so many incredible stories that revolved around Sister that it was just fascinating to hear. And I thought, who is this woman? Why don't we know more about her? And she did all this work over 70 years, living a life of service to the most vulnerable, the most marginalized in Honduras. And also I thought to myself, you know, she did this when Honduras was undergoing a lot of transition, a lot of change from military junta in those 7 years to this transition to democracy. There were some wars. There was, you know, that period of the Contras, what was happening next door in Nicaragua with the Sandinistas, and so much happening. And even today in Honduras, where there's, you know, a lot of environmental impacts and also, you know, some of the pandemic and youth having a lot of issues right now. I said, you know what, I think that there's a story here. And I think that a lot of people would resonate with her story. So that was really why it was important to tell Sister's story.
Yeah, and it is such an incredible story. And I remember you and I talked last year when you showed the documentary at the Vatican, but now, of course, more people will be able to see it. How important do you think that is? I mean, that this movie will now be available to a wider audience. And what do you hope people take away from it?
Well, you know what? I think it's very important that people see it because it's so inspiring. We have taken, my film team have taken Sister's story to diverse communities. So, you know, Hispanic communities in Honduras that had such a beautiful theatrical run. People loved it. In the U.S., we've done several film festivals, African-American communities, festival in the Midwest, down south. And we've even had a special screening at the Museum of Tolerance. And in every single community, people are so moved. And I think it's because the movie really is so richly layered. It's like a tapestry. And it's almost like you're experiencing an encounter in terms of, you know, from your past, from whatever you're seeking, there's something there for each person. And I think that afterwards, people say to me, you know, I was really uplifted. And, you know, in some cases I cried, but it was a good cry. And then I feel a sense of relief. And then now I feel energized. And I also feel hopeful. It's resonating with the young people, especially. We even have a music video because we have a signature song from an artist, Carla Morrison, and she's a Latin Grammy Award-winning artist. We have a really, you know, beautifully sung signature song by Carla. The young people are engaging on TikTok, Instagram with it. Because you know what? I think that you have to be able to go to different communities and showcase this film. And you have to go where people, you know, feel that you're serving them. And if it's the music video, then fine, let's do that too. And the film, fine, let's do that too, because that's part of our mission, is to go out there and bring the good word, bring the good news of, you know, the radical Jesus. So it's really resonating.
That is amazing. We have about 30 seconds left or so, Jessica, but I know people want to see this movie. How can they do so?
Yes, so for more information, you can go to www.withthislight.com, and we are playing in select theaters across the U.S. starting August 11th today, and then it'll be on video on demand on various digital platforms starting August 15th.
Now, Jessica, this is also very exciting. Congratulations, and God bless you, and God bless your work. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much.
And we thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, now X, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.